you a CEO looking to scale your company faster and easier? Check out Thrive Roundtable. Thrive combines a moderated peer group mastermind, expert one-on-one coaching, access to proven growth tools, and a 24/7 support community. Created by Inc. award-winning CEO and certified scaling-up business coach Bruce Eckfeldt, Thrive will help you grow your business more quickly and with less drama. For details on the program, visit eckfeldt.com/thrive. That's eckfeldt.com/thrive.
Hey everyone, Bruce Eckfeldt here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Make sure that you subscribe and turn on notifications so we can let you know when the next video is posted. You can also check us out at eckfeldt.com for more great content. With that, let's go check out the video.
You're listening to Thinking Outside the Bud, where we speak with entrepreneurs, investors, thought leaders, researchers, advocates, and policymakers who are finding new and exciting ways for cannabis to positively impact business, society, and culture. And now, here is your host, business coach, Bruce Eckfeldt.
Welcome, everyone. This is Thinking Outside the Bud. I'm Bruce Eckfeldt. I'm your host. Today's guest is Matthew Nordgren. Matt is founder and CEO of Arcadian Fund and Arcadian Capital Management. We're going to hear a little bit about that, as well as his background as a business person, as a philanthropist, as an athletic, both participant and manager. So we're going to hear a little bit about that background. Matt, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Bruce. Appreciate you having me.
So let's start with just a little bit of your personal background. So tell us a little bit about, from a professional point of view, what have you been doing in your professional career? And then how kind of cannabis came into that? I always like to hear the stories of how people got interested or exposed to the cannabis business.
Yeah, good question. Ran a real estate fund that in 2008 and 9, everybody had to rethink the world a little bit, right? And it was a large fund, and we had hundreds and hundreds of pieces of real estate that were either just land or an early development phase. And because it was a hard money fund, we got into a position with people that were borrowers where they had to either pay us and then figure out how to pay everyone else next to keep their land, or if they didn't think the land was worthwhile, they just gave us the keys and walked away. And that happened with a lot of pieces of dirt. And you can imagine the ones that gave us the keys didn't really think there was much upside on the land. Well, we didn't either. And then all of a sudden in 2010, 11, 12, each year that went by, we started to get more and more calls for cannabis businesses. And the reason is because these pieces of land or dirt that were otherwise undesirable, all of a sudden, they had an option to try to have cannabis businesses for tax purposes, right? These undesirable pieces of land were probably in cities and state parts of municipalities that needed money. So they wanted cannabis businesses. So for 4 or 5 years, really learned the industry, did my 10,000 hours, become an expert and all that stuff, right? Through getting rid of legacy real estate assets. About 2015-16, started to look for deals more specifically. I have been operating out of a family office environment, really as a private equity strategy investor while running funds there as well. And so really looked for a private equity-like deal, a bigger deal, a growth equity deal, leverage buyout type deal. That's when we found High Times. Looked at the High Times acquisition with a friend in 2015. It was about $125 million valuation at the time. We ended up passing for several reasons, but a year later, in 16, it came back to me through another close friend at a $70 million valuation, at which point we jumped on it. And so that's really how we got in. I spent 5 years doing real estate, learning it, spent a year looking for a deal, executed the High Times transaction with a friend. And then after that, it was sort of off to the races. Launched Arcadian Fund. That's where we launched Arcadian.
Got it. And it's interesting that you kind of came at it from the real estate point of view. So these were pieces of land that all of a sudden became strategically valuable for cultivation purposes? Cultivation,
right, mostly. Some manufacturing and some retail, but really you're looking at the desert hot springs, for example, or places in cathedral cities. So, there wasn't a ton of development to do. And you got places like that who saw this opportunity. We got calls from cities, from city officials. Saying, hey, you've got this land, it's got water and power and zoned and this and that. Would you mind doing cannabis business? we didn't even know what that meant.
Well, talk to me. Like, so what was your kind of take on cannabis at that point? Where were you coming from kind of personally, like in terms of understanding cannabis culturally, business-wise, otherwise? Where were you when that started to happen?
Well, I've always been around it. Being a football player, there was athletes that I played with that were using it their whole careers. And coming out of high school, it's not something that I was around a lot, to be honest. But as soon as I got to college, I realized that a lot of athletes used it for lots of reasons: anxiety, sleep, pain. And this was in early 2000s, 2001, 2000. So I started to try to see if it would benefit my life. And it did in some ways. And so I've been around it my whole life and understood that it does help people. And so it was nothing new for me to see the business side, but the numbers certainly made it make a little more sense.
Yes, it's a little surprising when you start crunching the numbers. And in terms of putting together those deals, I mean, what was the key for you in terms of making those transactions work from a real estate point of view?
Well, it was just real estate. It was a real estate deal. Someone had a higher and better use for it. That's really what it came down to. I wasn't interested in developing it or being involved in the business. It was just a real estate transaction that now had value. Where we found a lot of synergy was the operating businesses, like High Times. That's where we really got excited, because that's where we have our skill set. We've been one of the bigger private equity family office groups in the West Coast for many years. So when I looked at, after the High Times transactions, now we had not only the expertise from doing 5 years of real estate, we had the industry's most well-known asset based on 43 years of existence. That's when we really started to think about the industry in terms of what could our skill set bring to the table. And being at one of the larger groups in Southern California, being at the right age, I was 35 years old and had done 15 years of financing companies, and happened to be also in LA, which is the epicenter of the industry for the world. In just about every sense of the world, except for public markets, of course. Now Canada has that going, but figured we were in the right place, right time, had the right amount of resources, and felt like I was the right guy. So formulated a strategy around being able to invest more in operating businesses. And that was going to be, after sitting with the family office and all my investors who were larger investors, we'd never had a specialty in early stage investing. So really knew right away we didn't want to be involved in, the seed and angel investing. It's too many things that are needed for those companies. And there are great investors that do that. We just weren't one of them. We also decided that because of the large assets we were involved with that are both highly regulated and highly publicized assets, we couldn't touch the plant, didn't want to do anything that was federally illegal, which on our estimation is basically described as a business that requires a state license to operate, that today there are no federal licenses to do that business. So anything that didn't need a federal or state license to operate, we could invest in.
Interesting.
So we decided to look at businesses that were best in breed, that were growth equity. That was really our strategy. We had always been good at finding companies that had gotten to a point that were ready for scale. And so we didn't really need to solve any problems. It was more about resources to get them to the next level.
So you're not doing early stage, the seed, even A round. I mean, I guess where do you actually get involved? Like, what's your test for this is something that we'd actually start to consider versus this is something that's too early for us?
Yeah, the A round's about as early as we go. Sometimes some type of convertible to an A round we would get involved with if we really, really liked the business. We've done that a few times. And the reason is because for cannabis, I feel like the rounds are a round or too early as compared to normal venture private equity investing. Because you can have a company that's got 75% of the market share that is 2 years, month over month positive revenue growth and is generating significant cash that's raising an A round. I mean, that doesn't happen in Silicon Valley, So it's basically the whole cannabis market skews sort of early or late, depending on how you look at it. Whereas you may, if you're generally investing in B rounds, you might go to an A round in the cannabis market because they're just more advanced companies than typically you would see. That's right. And they're just, for several reasons, obviously the risk factor and because the industry is emerging, and there's a lot of reasons, but that's typically about accurate around. If you're a B round investor, you'd look for A rounds in cannabis.
And beyond the kind of financials, what are you looking for in the businesses? So the need a state license, kind of stuff aside, staying away from the actual plant product. What else are you looking for in terms of the investments? What are your kind of heuristics for deciding where to put your money and where not to?
Yeah, good question, Bruce. We really do look for experienced operators. And typically, because our companies are ancillary, they don't necessarily need someone who's had a lot of years in cannabis. In our minds, it's a consumer product. It's a medical product. It's an over-the-counter product. It's a lot of products that consumers can utilize. But I would think that someone who's had 30 years at big data company that sees cannabis as an amazing opportunity and then can go run a business just like he's run before in data has a better opportunity than someone who's been in cannabis for 30 years who feels like data is an opportunity for cannabis, right? Yeah. So we typically try to find guys and gals that have succeeded in that capacity. I think every CEO that has been in that position or a similar position at a company just like it that's not in the cannabis sector.
So it's not their first rodeo in most cases. And what do you see in terms of just kind of the business sophistication in terms of the market? Are you seeing that business folks, experienced senior business folks from other sectors are open and willing to get involved in cannabis-based businesses, across the board? Do you see hesitation? Is this changing over time? And what's going on in terms of the professional executive management of businesses in the cannabis space? Where are these people coming from?
Yeah, it's certainly changing as expected, right? I mean, John Boehner's a good example joining the Acreage board. We just had Vicente Fox join our board at High Times last week. And so what you're starting to see is similar to the end of prohibition for alcohol, right? The Kennedys are joining the team. I mean, it just makes sense. Yeah. So it was expected. But even last year, what you saw was you might have a guy who's or a girl, sorry. We're big on female empowerment in this industry. But you have people that were potentially maybe at Salesforce, for example, and they'd been there for 6 years, and Salesforce isn't that old of a company. And they're sitting there, 5 levels down from Mark Andreessen or something at Andreessen Horowitz, or if they're at Andreessen Horowitz, for example. We had a couple people that left that firm. We had a couple people that left who was the head of Salesforce? I forget his name, but
I'm just going to blank on it offhand, but yeah.
Yeah, but so you have executives at major companies and then a few levels down, and those guys and gals are making really good money and have great stock options and this and that. But then you have somebody who's been there 5, 6, 7, 8 years, 10 years, and they look at the people above them and they say, I may never get there, right? I just might not get there. But I know exactly what those people do, and I know exactly what I do for this business. I mean, I know the ins and outs. And so what you started to see was last year and the year before that, really, you started to see those types of people who were like one step removed from really, really being in the big bucks say, I'm going to leave and go build this exact company to a T, and then I'm just going to sell it back to these guys. Yeah. And funny enough, what we found that our companies end up talking quite a bit to their former associates at those big companies. And they know that they can't address the problem that cannabis businesses need. Cannabis businesses need payroll. They need software. They need data. They need compliance. They know the big companies know they can't address them. And so they end up actually supporting their old colleague who left because they would rather buy a company from a friend and know that the company actually fits and is going to work for them, right? They don't want to buy a company and the next day realize it has all these kinks and is going to cost a lot of money and time to figure out how to make it fit. They'd rather give information to their old colleagues to make sure it works and then pay a premium for that. So it's actually turning out to be a heck of a move by some of these executives who did leave early on to go build these businesses.
Yeah. And then I think it's an interesting one. I mean, I work with a lot of folks who are building out leadership teams in this space, and it's that strategy of finding the executive that you need that's in the non-cannabis space who is willing to come over is a great way to find good senior talent. And oftentimes, you're finding people who, like, as you said, have those connections that can actually grow the business and the way you need to grow it. It's fascinating what you're bringing up, which is the idea that sort of the federal legality situation that we're in ends up creating this business model or kind of, company growth model, which is you essentially support a business in the cannabis space that you can't touch for all sorts of legal reasons. but waiting for the business to kind of grow or waiting for regulations to work itself out. So you've got a good acquisition target once it happens.
That's exactly right. And by the way, it was Mark Benioff at Salesforce. So that just to put, but yeah, no, I mean, look, those guys, let's just use Salesforce as an example. And those guys are thinking that same thing, right? They do not have the risk appetite being as big as Oracle or Salesforce is to address cannabis right now. I mean, of course they would like to, but again, you know, these huge companies, they have a big need for either their shareholders, their stockholders, their board members, whoever it is, to address growth. They have to grow. Yeah. And when you're so big and you've already spent a lot of time, you know, attacking all the markets that were available to you and your market share leader in all of them, you know, you try your best to gain a point here or there. But the biggest thing you can do is when there is a new market to own and you have the ability to own it, you're going to. And you have to, or your shareholders and stakeholders are going to be very upset with you if you didn't take that opportunity. So when legislation passes for various verticals to make that move into this space, they will, and they will pay a premium. And our hedge is this. We find the best in breed companies because today you still get a discount for that risk, even for the market share leaders to some degree. And what we believe is if you're able to be a good fund manager and help manage these companies and resource them and do consolidations and roll up strategies and, you know, mergers and acquisitions along the way, when that time happens for that vertical to sell or have an exit or big companies to come in and make their acquisitions, we think they pay a premium. Because Salesforce can't let Oracle go buy this whole industry. It's too big. Yeah. So they'll have a bidding war and they'll make sure they go buy the biggest companies in it. And so you invest at a discount and you trade them for a premium. It's a pretty and legal.
Exactly.
It's a pretty interesting.
So now are you looking at, do you place investments in a couple of companies that are in the same kind of microsector here and kind of diversify? Or are you picking winners in each area and then really putting all your weight behind each one?
Like in every emerging industry and every mature industry, there usually is 2 to 3 major winners in each category, sometimes more. I mean, the old consumer product adage, right? You never want to have more than 5 options on the shelf because too many consumers don't do anything, too few they don't do anything. There's always that happy medium, and I think that's going to be the case here. I think that there'll be 3 to 5 companies that do well in each vertical, probably more like 3. Right now, we've sort of taken the approach to pick a horse. And what's happened is all of the funds that invest like we do, and there's about 10, we actually are really, really close friends. And we talk about this stuff all day. Rising tides lift all ships. And we want to make sure that we all work together for the benefit of the industry. We don't want, crazy numbers on valuations causing down rounds and flat rounds. We really do want these companies to grow smartly. And be ready for NASDAQ and Hong Kong and London exchanges, not the crazy stuff happening in Canada and other markets, and so we look at this and some of the funds are in one company, some of us are in another company, and then maybe a couple are in another, but ultimately not more than 2 or 3. And then we kind of engineer consolidations as new companies come into the fold, or companies that didn't get investments from us start to figure out they aren't 1, 2, or 3 and merge them together. I would like to, throughout the rest of the year and into next year, start investing in compete like similar companies in each vertical. We have to, it's a delicate situation with the companies we're in now, if we're going to do that, but I think they're going to be okay with it because everybody knows consolidation is going to happen. And having a friendly in that position is a helpful thing. But right now we're sort of doing it amongst the funds. We all know who's in what companies. We talk about the pros and cons of each, sensitive to our NDAs and our agreements with those companies, but enough to know what's happening. But we would like to start making moves to be in more companies in each vertical. Right now, we sort of picked a horse in each.
Okay. And what are the particular kind of subsectors here that you're focused on, or you see are particularly interesting for you?
Again, anything that doesn't require a state license, we'd like to be in, and that's a lot of verticals. Data, multiple kinds of software. Different kinds of data, compliance businesses, payroll, science, bioscience, technology, nanotechnology, I mean, the list goes on. Media, events, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a limitless amount of opportunity right now.
Yeah. I was talking to a staffing company yesterday that's getting into the space just because it's the growth is happening at such a rate that actually finding people that know how to work in these different sectors of the cannabis market is becoming a real issue. So they're solving it with staffing solutions. How do I find these people? How do I deploy them in different ways to meet the demand? So it's one of the exciting things about the sector is that it is a growing sector, has lots of different needs, and if you can find those kind of products and services that they need to actually grow, that can often be better than the actual handling the plant product itself.
I think long term it's massively bigger and better. What we have here, Bruce, is a really interesting opportunity to not only create generational wealth for people that do it right, but two other things that are really important. I think it's a great thing for humanity. Obviously the things we all talk about, opioids and alcohol and tobacco, this is a better solution for all of those things and countless other medical benefits. But the other thing that we probably don't spend enough time on is what this industry has the opportunity to do, which many other industries are now trying to reverse engineer. We have a chance to do it from ground up, which is sustainability. Right, which is environmental impact, which is female empowerment, right? I mean, every industry is trying to figure that out now. Well, we're being born now, and we get a chance to start it right from the beginning.
Bake it in.
I mean, this is a mother plant that gets cloned. It's a nurturing plant. It's Mother Nature. Like, that needs to be a big issue for us. And I think we're doing a good job of it. But those types of initiatives and, African Americans in jail and people in jail and persecution and stigma and all this stuff. I mean, we really have the opportunity to build this industry the right way, which is another really fun piece that we get to engineer. Yeah,
it is. It is exciting. I mean, as a sector, thinking beyond the business kind of opportunities, it has huge social, cultural impact as people's perception and relationship with the plant changes. It's going to have a lot of changes to who we are and how we interact and how we think about these things. So where do you see some of these things going as we look out the next 12, 24 months? What are the big things you're watching? What are the things you're anticipating? What are the things you're questioning or that you're not sure are going to happen?
Well, I would be concerned 12 to 24 months if I was retail, cultivation, manufacturing, because these businesses started out trading in public markets at 75 to 100 times revenue, which if you're an ag business, a brick and mortar retail business, or a manufacturing business, there's no market on planet Earth in any sector that trades anywhere near that, right?
Yeah.
I think what you're seeing is a little bit of it's like everything that gets exciting when it hits the public markets, .com and internet and all this stuff, right? I mean, they're trading now at 40 times earnings or 40 times revenue. And so they're down considerably from the multiple that they were trading to start the year, yet the companies are getting bigger because of the volume and acquisitions. So they look like they're growing, but actually their multiple per revenue is becoming more realistic. And I think ultimately those businesses get down to 5 to 10 times max.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of fallout to happen. Now, the bigger companies are going to diversify their investments and, be on the forefront of brands because they'll have shelf space and this and that. But, they'll diversify and the bigger companies will do really well. But it's going to, unfortunately, have a lot of casualties along the way. I think 75% of the people that are in those categories are going to be severely blown out. And so I think we have to watch for that over the next 12, 24 months. The good news is all that means is that for the consumer, the prices of cannabis become more realistic. It's like anything. Yeah. Computers, cars, cell phones. I mean, they all start out unrealistic and nobody can afford them. And then as prices fall, the bottom falls out and becomes more realistic. The companies that we've invested in, I think, grow, right? Because that means more product for more people. It means more transactions, more data, more volume, more this, more that. And so I think that you got to look for the ancillary stuff to grow. And then ultimately the longer term stuff, the brands, distribution, delivery, the IP coming out of laboratories that are going to really be the basis of all the new products, I think. So I think 12, 24 months, you got to look at the industry like this. And I think a lot of people don't. You have to think about the plant is not the plant. I'm a whole plant advocate personally. I'm a whole plant guy, but it's very clear to see the trends in every maturing market. People do not come into cannabis for flower. Flower has always been available to everybody. Just because it's cheaper and legal down the street doesn't mean you're going to convince anybody new to be a flower user. So this plant, you have to look at it almost as if you can deconstruct the plant, right? There's about 120 to 140 phytocannabinoids in cannabis or hemp plant. People say 40 are really only active, but there's a bunch to play with here. So if you can isolate them all individually and look at them as 140 buckets of isolated molecules. What does that molecule do in different doses and different delivery methods, in combination or conjunction with other molecules, other terpenes, B12, acai, who knows, right? Fish oil, you can put anything else. And you have to do that you can play with all of these things when you isolate them or combine them with other cannabinoids. So there's a limitless amount of combinations to play with. And when you think about it like that, now you have potential products that you can infuse these isolated molecules into that pretty much is anything in the grocery store. So what people don't understand is that every person on planet Earth is likely to be a consumer of cannabinoids, much like they are mushrooms right now. Mushrooms in about everything in the grocery store. When you break it down to its molecular level, people don't know it. But, it's a basic element of planet Earth, just like this plant potentially is as it's deconstructed. So I think long term, not even long term, 12, 24 months, you're going to see a lot of new products driven by isolated molecules with patented formulas and delivery methods. And that's where I think we're all hoping this industry goes, because that's when you have, put it this way, about 12 to 17% of any major market is currently some form of flower user or has access to flower or participates with cannabis flower. So if you broke that down to a room of 100 people, you could take 12, 15 people and say, okay, you guys are kind of already consumers in some way or going to be, let's get you out of the room. Let's focus on the other 85 people in there. If you walked in and said, hey, cannabis is legal, here's some flower, they're going to say, okay, thanks. I don't like the flower. I don't like lighting up things. I don't like smoking things. I tried it before. It doesn't work for me. Everyone's chemical makeup is different, and people's habits and desires are different. So now we have to target those other 85 people and say, how can we benefit your life? Well, there's maybe there's one child in there with epilepsy, and all of a sudden we have FDA approved Epidiolex from GW Pharma. Now we have a product for that one person. Okay, now we're down to 84 people. How do we turn 84 into consumers now? I don't know. We see a lot of products. I saw one come in the other day that was a tampon with CBD formula on it. So when a woman uses it, it's supposed to relieve menstrual pain and cramps and stuff. So I don't know. Maybe we could sell 10 other people in there 10 women. Hey, did you buy this product? Great. Now we've got 75 more people to sell. This is.
I like that idea. Right? It's kind of this incoming heyday of product innovation and product development around, given this kind of palette of different molecules, different things we have to work with, finding new, creative, innovative, effective uses for them in different.
That's where it's going,
consumers.
Right? Look, CBV, right? Appetite suppressant molecule by itself. If now I could sell 10 more people in there, maybe a CBV infused product because they're maybe overweight and have a desire to lose weight or suppress their appetites. That's what the whole industry is about. It ain't about servicing the 15 people in there who you already have as a consumer. In fact, of those 15 people that are already a consumer in there, they're probably more likely to go away from the plant as these other products become available and use them more. Case in point, Willie Nelson doesn't even smoke flower anymore. He only smokes oil, right? So my point is, it's very hard. People can argue all day and night the entourage effect from the whole plant, and I don't disagree with it. But I think you're going to have a hard time convincing America that they should be sliding up the plant versus just taking the molecules they need for some specific desired fact.
No, I think that's good. I think that's a good insight. And so what do you think you're going to be focused on in the next, kind of coming months? Like, where is your time and energy being spent?
Our time and energy is going to be spent continuing to speak at events around the world, want to share a similar story that we're talking about today in more depth, what this plant can do, what this industry can do, and then using that platform to talk about our companies that are solving those problems. We want to continue to manage our companies and put them in the forefront as leaders in their vertical. So for me, I work for my LPs, and my job is to make sure that the bets we've placed are good ones. But the fun part of that is that I get to do it and feel good about the work. So more of the same, Bruce, just continuing to preach and try to continue to grow our businesses the best we can.
That's great. And if people want to find out more about you and about Arcadia and all the work you're doing, what's the best way to get that?
We got a great team, Bruce. I think the best way to do it is just email us, info@arcadianfund.com, ARCADIAN fund.com. I don't have any social media. I think this plan is going to do one. Yeah, I'm old school. So, I think this plan is going to hopefully help society and humanity reconnect with itself. I think we're a very disconnected, distracted society today, which social media is a big part of. I know some people need it for business, and I think we even may have some for the business. But anyways, I think the best way is just hit us on an email, and and we'll be available.
Good, and I'll make sure that information in the show notes for folks, so they can get a hold of that. Matt, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I look forward to hearing how things go and the work that you're doing over the coming months.
Thank you, Bruce.
You've been listening to Thinking Outside the Bud with business coach Bruce Eckfeldt. To find a full list of podcast episodes, download the tools and worksheets, and access other great content, visit the website at thinkingoutsidethebud.com. And don't forget to sign up for the free newsletter at thinkingoutsidethebud.com/newsletter.